So my name is Hannah Kane. I was originally born in Denmark, and I started my career in manufacturing and supply chain back in Denmark before even the discipline supply chain was known. And in 1990, I immigrated to the U.S., and in 1997, I started Alon, a global supply chain management company. We work with technology companies or companies that have heavy technology in their product or in their supply chain. We are headquartered in Silicon Valley in Northern California, and we ship out of 17 locations for our Fortune 100 customers and work in the technology sector, automotive, medical, and a number of other sectors. And one of the things I've noticed over time is how trends, there are really a number of new trends in the supply chain industry. So the supply chain industry is, of course, relatively new, and one of the areas where changes are happening really fast is in the supplier or vendor-buyer relationship. So what happened some years ago was all of a sudden you could do exchanges online and you could do bidding, and everything was considered a commodity. The interesting thing that happened here was that while you drive the unit price down, you may drive other costs up. So unit price has just gone down and down and down, unit price for manufacturing. But all the supply chain cost, the compliance cost, the risk management cost, the cross-border cost, the customs, the taxes, and of course, especially the logistics cost have gone up and up. So the weak spot in the entire idea about driving unit cost down is that unit cost is the most important aspect of purchasing. And what actually has turned out, and a number of researchers have certainly confirmed this, is that driving unit cost down is not going to give you a competitive advantage. It's not going to make you the lowest cost provider necessarily. It's not going to give you what you really need. So the new trend in relationships between customers, industrial customers, business customers, and suppliers is that the customer looks for who can provide the most value at the end of the day. And in a way, of course, it's not new because that's what we used to do in the very old days, but the transparency of the unit cost has just overridden what we used to do, which was looking at who can give me a competitive advantage, who can collaborate with me. So we are talking a lot about the supply chain being a competitive advantage, being flexible, being agile, being able to meet customer demands, which keep going up as more flexibility, agility, customization becomes available. And consequently, having supply chain partners that can deliver that type of flexibility and that are dedicated is really a key factor in competitiveness. So I think intuitively we all know that when we deal with somebody and we treat them very fairly, we don't necessarily overpay them, but we are fair in all our dealings and we have a give and take relationship. We get a better outcome in many ways. I am reminded of one of my acquaintances who kept negotiating down and down and down with the people who cleaned her house, and finally they just decided that they could not do it anymore, and she was left doing her own cleaning. It's the same in supply chain and in supplier relationships. If you are not treating your suppliers fairly, they may service you until they find a better customer. And all of a sudden, you're left without the customer you really wanted to, without the supplier that really could leverage things for you. The other issue is when you need an extra favor, you need that extra production not expedited. You need something done out of the extraordinary. Having that relationship where everybody is committed, they know you have planned, you have done your best to not put anybody in that situation, and yet you're asking for it, so they are happy to deliver. In the end, it's about relationships. It's about how are your suppliers being treated and how do they feel treated by the customers. So we have customers we want to go through the hoops for, and we've got customers where we feel that they have really pushed us to the limit where we are asking ourselves whether we are better off or worse off having them as customers. The interesting thing about supply chain in the next decade is that there's going to be a deficit of staff members. So we are going to have about 2 million unfilled jobs in supply chain in the U.S. alone over the next decade. And consequently, it's really important to be able to outsource to suppliers that one can rely on. So instead of hiring internally, maybe somebody out there, somebody can be outsourced to and relieve some of the pressure to hire internally. But that only works if one has the relationship that allows one to be the customer of choice. And I think that's a new thinking about how do you become the customer of choice and how do you get the first mind share among your suppliers. The other interesting thing trend that I've been following is the trend about compliance management. So of course we are all spending more and more time doing compliance management, trying to figure out what's happening earlier in the supply chain. Have the minerals been mined from a conflict mineral mine? Has child labor been used? Indentured labor? Was everybody treated fairly, etc., etc.? There's only so much you can do in auditing, though. In the end, the best way to ensure that you have alignment is to make sure that you have cultural alignment, management alignment throughout the supply chain. So instead of just looking at unit cost, the most visionary companies out there are looking at whether the suppliers they sign on are culturally and business-wise aligned with them. And then they are looking at whether they then also have suppliers that are aligned with the supplier. So therefore, you get an alignment throughout the supply chain, and consequently, you can cut back on the auditing, because now, instead of just doing auditing, you have the commitment from top management and all the way down to ensure that everybody is doing the right thing. And it becomes part of the DNA in that supply chain. It's an interesting trend, and some companies have made it their business to ensure before they sign suppliers on that this alignment is taking place. It means that it's more difficult to become a supplier there, but it also means that there's a lot of loyalty and a lot of visibility and trust in that supply chain. And as we all know, once you've got trust, you can do business much faster. I'm a big proponent of creating the trust both on a senior management level and on an operational level among everybody in the supply chain. I feel this is a much more productive way of working than focusing so much on unit cost. In the end, this means that everybody is looking out for everybody else, trying to build a bigger cake and making sure that everybody gets a fair share of the cake based on what they bring to the table. I'm really excited about these new trends, and I think that they are going to be pervasive, especially among the high-end brands that really value their customers and that really are going to win in the success in the supply chain, flexibility, agility area. Thank you.